we were highly mistaken that they were here for agents. Getting clients is harder than ever, or they're not being able to focus on the business because there's every day when I would show up to the office, there was this one dude, his name was Chad. He was always in there cold calling. I don't know if he ever got any results from it, but I remember going in every single day, hearing him pick up the phone, say the same script, and then he would say, okay, have a nice day. And I was like, gosh, when I was hearing that, it was literally just making my fear of cold calling even more real. But I didn't have any business, and so I said, all right, tomorrow is going to be the day that I cold call. I didn't want it to be that day. I said, tomorrow is gonna be the day. I went into the office the next day. I had my scripts all ready to go. I felt like I was prepared and I had practiced, and I froze up. I couldn't do it that day either. I did it again. I said, okay, the next day is going to be the day that I start cold calling because I need some business. I'm broke and I gotta do something. So that next day I went into the office more determined than ever. I had my head held high. I practiced my cold call scripts. I was just ready to go. So I picked up the phone, I went to this website, I found for sale by owners on that website. It was literally a site for owners to go and sell their own properties on. I didn't know anything about a do not call list or anything like that, so I just started calling people, and the first person who picked up was willing to hear me out. I went through my whole script, and he told me, he said, okay, go and run some numbers and let me know what my property should be worth. I got off the phone with him, I did that, called him back and told him what I thought his property was worth. He said, okay, you have the listing. I was so shocked. I said, okay, great. Then he goes, do you want to know why I gave you the listing? And I said, yes, of course. That's exactly what I was thinking. Right. Why'd you give me the listing, sir? He said, because you actually did what you said you were gonna do. And I was like, great. So this seems easy. It seems easy to get listings. Now, this was back in 2014. How have things changed coming into 2020? What I want to answer in this video is, how hard is real estate in 2020 for new agents? So you talk to some people who have been in real estate for a long time, they're gonna tell you that it's so much easier for real estate agents today, but honestly, I think it's a little bit more difficult. And it just depends on when the person who you're talking to actually started in real estate, because they'll tell you, oh, back in my day, we didn't have all this technology. Y'all have the phones and the emails and the MLS and just social media, all this kind of stuff. I'm not talking about those people. Those are people who were in the business 10, 20 years ago and really didn't have anything. I'm talking about the people who may have gotten their licenses in the last 5 to 10 years. The question is real estate harder for newer agents now in 2020? And my answer is yes. Even though we have all that technology and systems and tools out there, I think it's a little bit more difficult for people. But I'm gonna give you some reasons why it's a little bit harder. Something that we're facing these days are disruptors. Disruptors, they've always been around. Disruptors are people who are trying to disrupt the real estate industry. They're trying to change the way real estate is done, eliminate agents, whatever you wanna call it. They are coming at blazing speed these days. I mean, companies that have historically been around for agents, we were highly mistaken that they were here for agents. They're actually in it for themselves. You know, they've just been collecting data and they've been collecting ways of doing things in order to try and replace the agents. So consumers are seeing these companies as an easy way out. They're seeing them as cheaper companies to work with. They're seeing them as other ways of doing things. So therefore, they don't necessarily feel the need to hire an agent. So agents these days are dealing with these disruptors, and we're having to change our businesses to really compete with these people. They have a large amounts of money to advertise, to market, to get into consumers' brains that a lot of agents we just don't have. And so it really brings it to a point where we have to rely on our relationships and our feet on the pavement to pull deals out of places. And that's a big reason why real estate is hard for a lot of people these days, because it's hard for people to get business. And I think it's even harder than ever for people to get business. There's so many different things coming at us saying, do it this way, do it that way, here's another way of doing things, here's how you can be guaranteed leads and this and that. And people are spending their money on this stuff, and at the end of the day, they're not getting any business. A lot of shiny objects are being thrown at real estate agents, but unfortunately, the rate of return is not what you would expect it to be. Getting clients is harder than ever. People are smarter. People are used to seeing advertisements. They feel like they're falling for something. They're wanting to go with more reputable names. It's not as easy as I feel like it once was, because of all of the technology, because of everything on TV and on the internet and in Facebook ads. Like, things are being thrown at agents just as much as they're being thrown at the consumers to want to work with these disruptors or want to work with the competition. And that's a whole nother subject, the competition. Like, with everything being so public, it's so easy for an agent to see what you're doing and try to take your marketing piece or try to steal your audience or get in the mind of your consumer. You know, I'm not one that literally feeds on the competition, but I know that it exists. And so if you're not someone that is extremely motivated to beat your competition, they're gonna eat you alive. And that makes it extremely difficult for newer agents coming into the business in 2020, because they don't really know what to expect, or they're listening to people who probably didn't have to deal with that. It's so interesting because I will host an open house and I will have more agents come into the open houses disguised as consumers just to see how I'm doing something, or just to try to see the way that I'm marketing it or how I show the home. And it's crazy because people are trying to pick up from any and everywhere, and then they want to go and do the things that you do and try to get the consumers the way that you get them, which it's fine. I'm all about sharing, but just know that that exists out there, and are you prepared to deal with that? Another thing that's making it extremely hard for newer agents in 2020 is that it's becoming more and more expensive to operate as a realtor. The MLS dues are going up, the board fees, the price of lock boxes. You know, I remember when lock boxes, when I was using the lock boxes early on in my career, they were the kind that you had this little fob and you would point it to it and it would read the lock box and then unlock it. That was one price. And then they came up with these Bluetooth ones that you operate from your phone and it's through Bluetooth. And when that happened, the price of the lock boxes shot up like $40, and they were already, I want to say, around like 80. So now they're well over 100, and this is just for a lock box. Training is getting more expensive. Like, people are having to spend more and more money just to operate as a real estate agent, and that's cutting into the bottom line. As the market's changing, because the market is changing, as prices are going down, we're now dealing with splits of these companies and other agents who are just charging 1% or 2%, and agents aren't making as much money as they may have once made because they're trying to compete with all these other things out there. So even with that, with the expense of being a real estate agent, it's turning a lot of people away from the business, or they're not being able to focus on the business because they're so worried about how they're gonna make ends meet. The point of this video is not to turn anybody off on becoming a real estate agent, but it's just to make sure that I keep it real about what's going on, and if real estate is just as easy, or if it's harder or cheaper or more expensive than it's historically been. I'm wanting to make sure that I say the right things, because I don't want anybody getting a false idea of what it's like actually working as a real estate agent. But if you're up for the challenge, go for it. I strong-heartedly believe that anything is possible, and we just have to adapt, we just have to adjust. Continue subscribe to my channel, because I release content that can help you make it through 2020 as a real estate agent, and I'm sure that I can help you succeed.